Hello. Have you ever wondered how authors decide which genres to write in? I mean, of course, a lot of times writers just choose to write in genres that they enjoy reading in, and that's a perfectly legitimate way to choose. But what happens when your ideas for stories don't quite match up to what you tend to read in? How do authors handle that? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about how I handle it. And of course, one of the first things they have to do is research. So today I'm going to share the process that I use, or that I am using, to choose a new genre to write in. By the end of this video, you'll know my first steps in the process and how it differs from how I chose to write in women's paranormal fiction. And I'll briefly touch on 8 books that I bought to introduce me to these 2 new genres that I'm interested in. I'd like to know at the end if you have read extensively in either of these genres, and if you have any books to recommend to me to read for my research. I am a little choked up this morning. It's springtime and I have springtime allergies. This morning I am drinking lemon ginger tea from Twinings from my Emerson Creek bunny mug. That should help a little bit. Okay, now as I said, I have written 2 kinds of books. I've written nonfiction, which I have really enjoyed and we'll get back to one day perhaps. And I've also written a series of women's paranormal fiction books. I have ADHD, as I've mentioned, and I'm also an Aries. So my brain craves novelty and I get bored easily. So that's why I've got to switch things up a bit now. When I first wrote the Whippoorwill Gap Paranormal Women series, I had thought that it was just some sort of maybe cozy fantasy. And I talked to a book coach, and when she heard my plans for the book, the plot and all that, she said, no, that's not cozy fantasy. That's paranormal women's fiction. Well, when I read fiction, I've always tended to read classics or I read literary fiction. I'd never really taken a dive into genre fiction. So that was a real introduction to me, and I had to learn the difference. And I had to learn about tropes. Even though I minored in English in college, that was a long time ago, I don't remember learning about tropes, and I don't remember learning a lot about them in library school, in graduate school. I did a little research on my own about fiction reading habits of the public library clientele. And, of course, I knew that there were horror and science fiction and fantasy and romance. I knew about all that, but I didn't know that with the advent of the internet, that it had taken so many turns and twists and subgenres and subgenres. I had no idea about any of that. So it's been an interesting thing to learn. But anyway, that is how I chose my first genre. I had a book coach tell me where it belonged: paranormal women's fiction. Okay, so now I have finished with that series and I'm ready to move on to something different. Now here's where I'm going to stay the same. I still want to have some of it at least be historical fiction. Probably I'm going to take a shift to historical fiction altogether because I enjoy research so much and I would like an excuse to have to do more. But I also want to make sure that my books maintain touches of magic, and I also want folklore and perhaps some fairy lore to enter into the stories as well. But I don't really fit in all that well with paranormal women's fiction. Women who write paranormal women's fiction tend to be around 10 years younger than I am. And they tend to be definitely Gen X. I'm at the tail end of the baby boomers. I don't really fit in with baby boomers, but I also don't really fit in with Gen X. I'm kind of in the middle. One YouTuber has called it Generation Jones, and I definitely relate to that. I didn't really fit in with paranormal women's fiction is my point, because I don't really have a snarky sense of humor. I don't know. There are just a lot of things that they tend to be darker novels than I want to write. It's just different things that I don't really fit in all that well in that genre. So I thought maybe I need to choose another. So I did a little bit of research. I bought the book From Zero to Four Figures, Making $1,000 a Month Self-Publishing Fiction by Paul Austin. Let me say his name correctly. Paul Austin Ardon, I think is how you pronounce it. I discovered him on the Book Funnel YouTube channel. I'll link to, if I can remember to, I will link to his interview with the Book Funnel crew below. I had been toying with the idea for a while of writing in a different genre anyway, and I didn't really know how to get started. So what he suggested was that you look at any genre you plan to write in before you begin, which was a good idea. It's going to save me lots of time in the long run, I think. And based on the ideas that I have rattling around my head, and I have several, I chose to focus on magical realism and historical fantasy. Now, those two can overlap. Most genres can overlap just a bit, but you really, when you write to sell books, you really need to focus on one audience or the other. The audiences are distinct, and you need to make sure that you hit one or the other as closely as you can. So he recommended that you look up books that sell well in the genre you chose. Now, I decided after doing research into both magical realism and historical fantasy to choose both self-published and traditionally published books in both genres. And I ordered some, and I'm going to discuss the ones I chose by the end of the video. I haven't started yet, really. I've just started reading the first one. But I'm making a spreadsheet, and I'm going to keep up with tropes that I find in each one, and I'm going to make notes on different things that I should maybe keep in mind when I write, or things that I want to do more research on in that genre before I begin. Okay, so without further ado, today I'm going to go over the books that I bought and not go into a lot of detail on them. I'd just like to know if you have read any of them and what your thoughts were, and if you're a fan of either genre, which sorts of tropes do you like to see? What attracts you to those books? This bug is going to drive me insane. I really have no idea what to expect from these books. I'm just intrigued by the genres. So let's get started. The first one is The Herbalist. This is by Heather Morrison Tapley. And the author is a licensed acupuncturist and Chinese herbalist who lives on coastal Maine. Lucky her. That is a gorgeous part of the country. And she grew up splitting her time between New York and a village in New England. And this book, I've read the first 3 chapters, and it does kind of follow along with her life story. In a sense, it is better, I think, to write about what you know, what you're familiar with, but you don't have to, but it does help. This is her first novel. I'm just going to read the blurbs on these because I really don't know anything about them. Eden Martin had the perfect life in New York, a promising career, a successful fiancé, a great apartment. But when it all came crashing down, she abandoned her whole life and moved to a village in England in search of something new. Or would it turn out that something ancient had been searching for her all along? So that's the first one, The Herbalist. The next one is The Midnight Bookshop. This is by Amanda James. It says you don't choose the book chooses you. I don't know anything about this author. Long ago, a bookshop was born, the beating heart of all those who find hope within the pages of a book. With the words penned upon the echo of old forests, new worlds are created, ready and waiting to welcome those who know where to work. Ready and waiting to welcome those who know where to look. Strangers Joe, Adelaide, and Kai are the least likely people to find themselves across the threshold of a bookshop. But as their midnight book club shows them that a single book can change everything, all 3 will soon find out that their own stories can be rewritten. Sounds good. Okay, the next one is Memory House, a novel. It's book 1 of the Memory Keeper's House series by Betty Lee Crosby. It says she is a wife, a dog mama, and a storyteller who revels in all things Southern. Okay, so She sounds like I have a lot in common with her. Is it possible for a memory to outlive its owner? Ophelia Brown knows the answer is yes. She knows because she's been granted the unique gift of finding and caring for those forgotten memories. But now she's nearing 90, and brown women seldom live beyond 90. Before time runs out, Ophelia must find her successor, someone who can take hold of the gift and keep the memories from fading. When broken-hearted Annie Cross shows up at the doorstep of the Memory House bed and breakfast, Ophelia knows she is the one. The two women forge a bond of friendship as they sip the magical dandelion tea and share stories. When Annie starts to sense the memories of herself, Ophelia is delighted. But when a thread of violence begins to unravel, she knows they have gone too far. Yep, that sounds good too. All these books, I chose them because they all had good reviews on Amazon, on Goodreads, and other places that I looked. They had lots of reviews and they were good. Some of these books are self-published, as I said, and some are not. And another thing that I want to keep in my books that is not in all of these, but probably is a theme that runs through all, is that they focus on older women. I am an older woman, and I also feel like older people tend to be neglected in genre fiction and really in fiction in general. So I'm going to try to focus on that in my next books. The next one is The Wondrous Life and Loves of Nella Carter by Brianni Nwasu. I probably pronounced that incorrectly, and I apologize. Okay, I don't see any information about the author on the back, but it says, when it comes to life and death, one last love can change everything. Most humans cower in the face of death. Not Nella Mae Carter. She sees him. She doesn't hide. Instead, she bargains. Born enslaved in 18th century Georgia, Nella still believes in the will to survive amid the most untenable of conditions, in the glory of life and in the ultimate goodness of the human race. She asks that death, doubtful and curious, allow her to live long enough to prove it. He's giving Nella all the time in the world. Challenged, Nella embarks on an epic journey across the globe in centuries. That sounds good. Each new incarnation records the joys and losses and friendships and heartbreaks throughout her lifetimes. When she meets handsome and passionate Professor Sebastian Moore, the first man to whom she has ever revealed her secrets, Nella yearns for mortality that escapes her. She can't bear to leave this love behind. As death keeps watch, has Nella's journey come to an end? Or is a new one just beginning? Yep, that sounds like a good book. Looking forward to that one. Okay, the next one is When the Moon Was Ours by Anna Marie McLemore. Okay, don't see any information on the author. It says from the author of The Weight of Feathers comes a young adult novel. This is a young adult novel. I probably didn't realize that when I ordered it, but I'm going to read it anyway. About a girl hiding the truth, a boy with secrets from his past, and 4 sisters who could ruin them both. To everyone who knows them, best friends Neil and Sam are as strange as they are inseparable. Roses grow from Neil's wrist, and rumors say that she spilled out of a water tower when she was 5. Sam is known for the moons he paints and hangs in the trees, and for how little anyone knows about his life before he and his mother moved to town. But as odd as it sounds, everyone considers Neil and Sam, even when they stay away from the Bonner girls, 4 beautiful sisters rumored to be witches. Now they want the roses that grow from Neil's skin, convinced that their scent can make anyone fall in love. And they're willing to use every secret Mill has fought to protect to make sure she gives them up. This was an award-winning book, the Stonewall Honor book, long listed for the National Book Award. So this is definitely traditionally published. Also mentioned in book list. Okay, we've got 4 more to go. I'll try to make it a little bit snappy. The next one is Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. Don't see anything about the author on the back of this one, but it's a Ballantine book, so it is traditionally published. The beloved debut novel from New York Times bestselling author of Other Birds about an enchanted tree and an extraordinary family that has tended it for generations. Now featuring the original deleted prologue and a new reader's guide. I think I'll just read the first paragraph of these because some of these blurbs are very lengthy. The Waverleys have always been a curious family, endowed with peculiar gifts that make them outsiders in their hometown of Bascom, North Carolina. I'm sensing a Southern theme here as well in the books I chose. That was not intentional. Even their garden has a reputation, famous for its feisty apple tree that bears prophetic fruit and its edible flowers imbued with special capabilities. Generations of Waverleys have tended this garden. Their history is in the soil, but so is their future. Okay, so this is about Claire Waverley and Sydney, her rebellious sister. So I'm thinking that one will be good. This one you're probably familiar with. I had heard, this is the only one I had really heard of before I bought these. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Matt Haig is a quite well-known author, so, and this is absolutely, the Washington Post says it's whimsical, a feel-good book guaranteed to lift your spirits. So yeah, that's the vibe I'm going after in my books too. I thought it would be good to read one that had been hyper successful. So we all have regrets, choices we could have made differently, paths we didn't take, other lives we might have lived. But what if you were given a chance to fix your past? Enter the Midnight Library. Nora's life has been going from bad to worse. Then, at the stroke of midnight on her last day on Earth, she finds herself transported to the Midnight Library, where each book contains an alternate life, a possible world in which she made different choices. She is given what seems like the ultimate opportunity, a chance to undo her regrets and try out each of the other lives she might have lived. Oh, that sounds great. But things aren't always what she imagined they'd be, and soon her choices place the library and herself in extreme danger. Okay, so yeah, that sounds good. Two more. No, I picked up one that's not in the stack. Oh, well, we won't talk about that one. This is the book Charmer. This will be the last one. This is by Karen Hawkins. She is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author, so yeah, this is Simon & Schuster, definitely traditionally published. Actually, I think I picked more traditionally published than self-published. That was probably a mistake. I may have had trouble finding self-published authors in these genres that had done extremely well. That's probably what happened. If you know of any, please let me know. This is a native Southerner who grew up in the mountains of East Tennessee. And I have spent quite a bit of time around that area, so that's interesting. Sarah Dove is no ordinary bookworm. Okay, books are another theme, and books will definitely be included in all my books. To her, books have always been more than just objects. They live, they breathe, and sometimes they even speak. When Sarah grows up to become the librarian in her quaint southern town of Dove Pond, North Carolina, her gift helps place every book in the hands of the perfect reader. Recently, however, the books have been whispering about something out of the ordinary, the arrival of a displaced city girl named Grace Wheeler. If the books are right, Grace could be the savior that Dove Pond desperately needs. The problem is, Grace wants little to do with the town or its quirky residents, Sarah chief among them. It takes a bit of urging and the help of an especially wise book. Love that. But Grace ultimately embraces the challenge to rescue her charmed new community. In her quest, she discovers the tantalizing promise of new love, the deep strength that comes from having a true friend, and the power of finding just the right book. That sounds great too. So I'm really looking forward to reading all 8 of those books. I'm going to keep up, like I said, with the tropes and things that I liked and things that I didn't like about each one, just taking notes. And when I finish with all this, my plan is to do another video at some point to let you know. I'm not going to go into details about what I thought about each book. I don't want to review them, and I don't want to diss another author. But I will go up with I will let you know the ideas that I got and how I organize them. So, that's what I'm going to do. So this is the very first step of my research into genres. I also may decide that neither one of these genres are for me. So that's possible as well. If you know of other genres that might be a good fit for my writing, let me know that. Okay, the 2 books that I'm reading at present. The first is Hidden Libraries, the World's Most Unusual Book Depositories, which was a gift from my friend. It's a Lonely Planet book by D.C. Helmuth, and it was published in 2024. And I am having it's just a fun book at the end of a long day when you're tired to sit back and kick back and see how these very interesting book depositories from all over the world have been set up, and who they serve, how they began, how they operate. You know, I was a public librarian, and I spent many years in school libraries. So to me, this is extremely interesting, but I think it would be interesting to any book lover. And then, of course, the fiction book I'm reading right now, as I mentioned before, is The Herbalist. So I will maybe let you know what I think about that in the next video. We'll see. But until then, I wish you all happy reading, happy tea drinking, or whatever it is you enjoy drinking, and cheers.